Marcus Chen had been mining asteroids for 3 years when he discovered something that would change everything. The deep space mining operation near the Vale Nebula was supposed to be routine: extract rare metals, avoid the radiation storms, and stay away from the restricted zones marked by the Galactic Council. But Marcus was human, and humans had a terrible habit of being curious about things they shouldn't touch. The scanner readings were all wrong. Where there should have been solid rock and metal deposits, the instruments showed something organic, something alive. Marcus adjusted his mining suit systems and moved closer to investigate. The asteroid's surface looked normal enough, gray rock pitted with craters and mineral veins. But beneath the surface, his scanners detected a massive hollow chamber. "Control, this is Miner 7, Marcus spoke into his comm unit. "I'm getting some weird readings on asteroid designation Zeta 47. Might be worth a closer look." Static crackled back through the speakers. The radiation from the nearby nebula often interfered with communications. Marcus was effectively on his own out here, floating in the dark between stars with only his mining suit keeping him alive. He activated his suit's drilling laser and began cutting through the asteroid's crust. The work was slow and methodical. Each pulse of the laser carved away chunks of rock that floated away into space. After 2 hours of careful cutting, Marcus broke through into the hollow chamber below. The sight that greeted him defied every law of physics he knew. Inside the asteroid was a vast spherical chamber filled with swirling energy that looked like liquid light. The walls were covered in crystalline formations that pulsed with their own inner glow, and floating in the center of it all was something that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. She was beautiful beyond any human conception of beauty. Her skin seemed to be made of starlight itself, shifting between silver and gold as she moved. 6 massive wings extended from her back, each one covered in patterns that looked like constellations. Her hair flowed around her like solar wind, and her eyes burned with the fire of newborn stars. She was also completely naked. Marcus fumbled with his suit's camera controls, trying to record what he was seeing. This had to be some kind of hallucination caused by radiation exposure. Beings like this didn't exist. They were the stuff of ancient Earth religions and mythology. But as he watched, the being, the angel, because that's what she had to be, turned and looked directly at him through the breach in the asteroid wall. Her eyes widened in what looked like shock, and she quickly moved her wings to cover herself. "You see me," she said, her voice somehow reaching him across the vacuum of space. It was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard, like music made from the harmony of planets in orbit. No mortal should be able to see through the veils we weave. Marcus tried to speak, but only managed to stare. The being's presence filled his mind with overwhelming sensations: the taste of solar wind, the feeling of gravity from 1,000 worlds, the sound of time itself flowing past like a river. "You are human," she continued, studying him with those star-bright eyes. "Your species was not supposed to develop the sight. The Council assured us that humans lacked the spiritual evolution necessary to perceive our true forms." I can see you," Marcus finally managed to say. "What are you?" The being's expression grew troubled. "I am Zephyra of the Seraphim Order, guardian of the 7th sphere. And you, human, have created a problem that may cost us both our lives." She gestured to the crystal formations around the chamber. "These are not mere decorations. They are sacred viewing crystals that allow the council races to observe the divine realms. When I entered this meditation chamber to commune with the higher powers, I removed my physical manifestation garments. I was assured that no being capable of seeing me was within 1,000 light years of this location." Marcus's mind reeled as he tried to process what she was telling him. "You mean this is like a bathroom? Or a changing room?" Despite everything, Zephyra almost smiled. A crude comparison, but not entirely inaccurate. The problem is that you have seen me in my pure form, which creates a sacred bond according to Seraphim law. Among my people, when one being perceives another in their true state, they become spiritually linked. Linked how? Marcus asked, though he was already dreading the answer. Bonded for life. What you might call married. Zephyrah's voice carried a note of resignation. But there is a worse problem. The council races worship us as divine beings. They believe we are perfect, untouchable, beyond physical existence. If they learn that a human has seen me unclothed, that I have been reduced to mere physicality in the eyes of a primitive species, they will execute us both to preserve the illusion of our divine nature. Marcus felt his world spinning out of control. So, let me get this straight. I accidentally saw you naked, which means we're married, and now we're both going to die because your fan club can't handle the idea that you have a body? That is surprisingly accurate, Zephyrah said, though I would not call them a fan club. Alarms suddenly began blaring in Marcus's suit. His radiation detector was going crazy, and his long-range scanners showed multiple ships approaching fast. Very fast. The Council's enforcement fleet, Zephyrah breathed. They monitor all interactions with sacred sites. They detected your breach of the chamber. Can't you just disappear? Teleport away? Marcus asked desperately. The viewing crystals prevent dimensional travel while active. I am trapped here until the meditation cycle completes in 6 hours. Zephyrah's wings fluttered nervously. And they will arrive in minutes. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities. He was a mining engineer, not a soldier or diplomat, but he was human, and humans had survived by being stubborn and creative when everything went wrong. How many ships? He asked. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 dreadnoughts, and a command vessel, Zephyrah replied after consulting some kind of mystical energy display. The Council does not take chances when divine matters are involved. What's their standard procedure in situations like this? There is no standard procedure. This has never happened before. Zephyrah's voice carried a note of panic. Humans were supposed to be incapable of perceiving us. The Council classified your entire species as spiritually null, unable to interact with divine energies. Marcus looked around the chamber, taking in the crystal formations and energy flows. His engineer's mind began working on the problem. These crystals, they're some kind of amplifier, right? They let other species see you? They attune mortal minds to divine frequencies, yes, but you needed no such amplification. You saw me with your naked eyes across the dimensional barrier. Which means humans aren't spiritually null at all. We're the opposite. Marcus felt pieces of the puzzle clicking together. We can see you naturally without technology. That's going to terrify them. The approaching ships grew larger on his scanners. Marcus could see weapon signatures powering up. Zephyrah, he said urgently, do you trust me? She looked at him with those impossible star-bright eyes. I have no choice. We are bonded now, human Marcus. Your fate is mine, and mine is yours. Then hold tight. I'm about to prove that humans didn't become the galaxy's best miners by following other people's rules. Marcus activated his mining suit's emergency protocols and fired his positioning thrusters, launching himself into the crystal chamber. As he passed through the dimensional barrier, reality seemed to twist around him. Colors that had no names flooded his vision, and he could suddenly feel the presence of vast intelligences watching from beyond the stars. But more importantly, he could feel Zephyrah's mind touching his. Through their bond, he could sense her memories, her knowledge of Seraphim technology and council politics. And she could feel his human determination, his species' absolute refusal to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. You're insane, she whispered as he landed beside her in the chamber. Yeah, Marcus grinned, already working on his plan. But I'm human. We specialize in impossible situations. The Council fleet was taking positions around the asteroid, and Marcus could feel their scan beams probing the chamber. In minutes, they would begin their attack. But Marcus had something they didn't expect. He had human engineering skills, access to Seraphim knowledge through his bond with Zephyra, and absolutely nothing left to lose. It was time to show the galaxy what happened when someone threatened a human's family, even if that family was an accidentally married angel who glowed like a small star. Marcus worked frantically while the Council fleet moved into attack formation around the asteroid. Through his bond with Zephyra, he could access knowledge that no human had ever possessed: the inner workings of divine technology, the politics of species that worshipped angels, and most importantly, the one weakness in the Council's seemingly perfect plan. "They're going to sterilize the entire area," Zephyra said, her voice tight with fear. "Not just destroy us, they'll use quantum disruptors to erase us from existence completely. No evidence that this ever happened." Marcus nodded as he connected his mining suit's power cells to the crystal formations around the chamber. "That's what I'm counting on. They're so desperate to cover this up that they're not thinking clearly." "What are you doing?" Zephyra watched him work with growing amazement. The crystals began to pulse brighter as human technology interfaced with Seraphim divine energy. "Your people use these crystals to let other species see you, right? But it only works one way. They can see in, but you can't project out." "Correct. The dimensional barriers prevent divine beings from broadcasting beyond the sacred chambers," Marcus finished. "But I'm not divine, I'm human. And humans have been broadcasting signals across space for over 2 centuries. Marcus pulled out his mining suit's emergency beacon, a device designed to punch through asteroid interference and reach rescue ships light years away. But instead of connecting it to his suit's transmitter, he wired it directly into the crystal array. "Marcus, even if you could transmit something, who would you contact? The Council controls all communication in this sector." Marcus grinned as he made the final connections. "I'm not contacting anyone in this sector. I'm broadcasting to Earth." The crystals flared with brilliant light as human electromagnetic technology merged with Seraphim divine energy, the chamber filled with harmonic resonance that made reality itself sing. "Earth is 300 light years from here," Zephyra protested. "No signal can—" "No ordinary signal," Marcus corrected. "But you're forgetting something important. We're married now, right? According to your laws?" "Yes, but—" "Which means I'm not just human anymore. I'm human bonded to Seraphim, and that changes everything." The signal that erupted from the asteroid chamber was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It bypassed normal space-time limitations, riding along the divine energy frequencies that Seraphim used to commune with higher powers. But instead of carrying prayers or mystical communications, it carried something far more dangerous. It carried the truth. Marcus's jury-rigged transmitter sent everything: his memories of discovering Zephyra, their conversation about the forced marriage law, the Council's plan to commit murder to preserve their religious beliefs. But more than that, it broadcast proof that humans could perceive divine beings without technology. The signal reached Earth in minutes rather than centuries. Admiral Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister and commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, was in the middle of a routine briefing when every communications system in Earth's military network suddenly activated at once. "Sarah," Marcus's voice came through speakers with crystal clarity, backed by harmonics that made everyone in the room feel like they were listening to the voice of creation itself. "I need help. I accidentally married an angel and her government wants to kill us both for it." The briefing room fell completely silent. "The signal is coming from the Veil Nebula," reported the communications officer. "But Admiral—" It's being transmitted on frequencies we've never seen before, and the signal strength is impossible. Nothing can punch through space-time distortion like this. Admiral Chen stood slowly. Continue the broadcast. Marcus's story unfolded over the next several minutes, transmitted with perfect clarity across 300 light-years of space. Every word was recorded, analyzed, and verified by Earth's best scientists. The impossible signal was real. The divine beings were real, and they were about to murder a human citizen for the crime of having functional eyesight. Red alert, Admiral Chen ordered. Deploy the entire fleet. Navigation. Plot a course for the Veil Nebula. Maximum speed. Admiral, that's a 3-month journey even with our fastest ships. Then we'd better hurry. Meanwhile, back in the asteroid chamber, the Council fleet was preparing to fire. Marcus could see the energy building in their weapons through Zephyra's enhanced perception. Your signal reached Earth, Zephyra said with wonder. I can feel it. The divine frequencies are still connected, but your people cannot possibly arrive in time to help. They don't need to arrive, Marcus said. They just need to exist. The Council's command ship hailed the asteroid. A voice like grinding stone filled the chamber, the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Council. Divine Zephyra, you will emerge immediately for purification. The human contamination will be cleansed, and this incident will be sealed from all memory. With respect, Chancellor, Marcus called back, I think you might want to reconsider. Silence stretched for long seconds. Then, the human speaks? This is worse than our worst projections. You have been reduced to communicating with primitive beings. Actually, Marcus said cheerfully, we've been having a great conversation. Did you know that your entire civilization is built on a lie? Silence! You will not speak again. I'm human, Marcus replied. We're really bad at staying quiet when people threaten us. Ask any species that's tried to conquer Earth how that worked out. Through the divine frequencies, Marcus could feel the Chancellor's growing rage and panic. The truth was spreading. Earth had already begun broadcasting Marcus's story across human space. And from there it would reach the independent colonies, the trade networks, and eventually every species in the galaxy. The knowledge of divine beings must remain sacred, the Chancellor declared. Mortals cannot be allowed to perceive us as mere physical entities. Here's the thing, Marcus said. I've been inside Zephyra's mind through our bond. I've seen how your people really live. You're not gods. You're not even particularly divine. You're just people with better technology and really good public relations. Blasphemy? Truth. And truth has a way of spreading, especially when you try to suppress it with murder. Zephyra moved closer to Marcus, her wings creating a shelter of starlight around them both. Through their bond, he could feel her amazement at his complete lack of fear in the face of impossible odds. The Council races worship us because they choose to, she said softly. They created elaborate mythologies around our people because they needed something greater than themselves to believe in. But you're right. We're not gods. We're just us. And that's okay, Marcus said. Humans gave up needing gods a long time ago. We figured out how to be impressed by people just being people. The Chancellor's voice returned, cold with fury. Enough! The contamination will be cleansed. Weapons are charged. You have 10 seconds to... The transmission cut off abruptly. For a moment, Marcus thought they were about to be vaporized. Then he felt something impossible through the divine frequencies, the presence of other minds, vast and angry and very, very human. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet, a voice announced across all channels. You will stand down immediately and withdraw from this system. Impossible, came the Chancellor's response. Earth is 300 light-years distant. No fleet could... We didn't travel through normal space. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the Chancellor's protests. Turns out, when you threaten to murder someone's brother for marrying an angel, That brother's wife gets really motivated to help. Zephyra taught us how to use the divine frequencies for faster-than-light travel." Marcus grinned. Through his bond with Zephyra, he had unknowingly been transmitting not just his message, but also Seraphim navigational knowledge. Earth's engineers had figured out how to build crude divine frequency drives in a matter of hours. "The human fleet numbers only 12 ships," the Chancellor said. "We have over 100 vessels." "Yeah," Admiral Chen replied, "but we're human, and you just threatened our family." The space around the asteroid suddenly erupted with weapons fire as the most lopsided battle in galactic history began. The Council had superior numbers, better shields, and weapons designed by species that had mastered war for millennia. But they had made one critical error. They had underestimated what humans would do to protect their own. Marcus felt the battle raging through his connection to the divine frequencies, and what he sensed filled him with pride. Earth's ships were outgunned and outnumbered, but they fought with a savagery that shocked the civilized Council forces. Human crews rammed their ships into Council vessels rather than surrender. Human fighters used their ships as weapons when their guns ran out of ammunition. And through it all, Admiral Chen's voice echoed across the battlefield. "My brother found love in the darkness between stars. Anyone who wants to take that away from him has to go through us first." The tide of battle began to turn as more human ships arrived through the divine frequencies. Marcus realized that Earth hadn't just sent the defense fleet. They had mobilized every ship they could find. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, even civilian craft armed with improvised weapons. "They're fighting a war across 300 light-years for you," Zephyra whispered in amazement. "For us," Marcus corrected. "You're family now, and humans protect their family." The Council fleet, faced with an enemy that refused to follow the civilized rules of warfare, began to retreat. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished with them yet. "Chancellor," her voice cut through the chaos, "you have a choice. You can accept that humans can see divine beings naturally and learn to live with that truth, or you can try to cover it up, and we'll make sure every species in the galaxy knows exactly what kind of people their gods really are." The silence that followed was filled with the weight of civilizations choosing their future. The Chancellor's response took 3 full minutes to arrive, and when it came, it carried the weight of a civilization's fundamental beliefs crashing down around them. "The Council requires time to consider these developments," he said finally. "A temporary ceasefire will be observed while we reassess the situation." Admiral Chen's laugh echoed across the battlefield. Translation: "You're going home to figure out how to spin this so your people don't realize their gods have been lying to them for millennia." "The divine nature of the Seraphim is not a lie," the Chancellor protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "No," Marcus called out from the crystal chamber, "it's not. But the idea that they're untouchable, perfect beings who exist beyond physical reality, that's definitely a lie. And everybody's going to know it now." Through the divine frequencies, Marcus could feel the panic spreading across Council space as his original transmission reached more and more worlds. Species that had worshipped the Seraphim for thousands of years were suddenly confronted with proof that their gods were people. Complicated, flawed, physical people who could fall in love and make mistakes just like anyone else. "The galaxy is changing," Zephyra said softly. Her wings wrapped around both of them as the crystal chamber continued to pulse with merged human and Seraphim technology. "My people have hidden behind the myth of divine perfection for so long that we've forgotten how to be real." "Being real is scary," Marcus admitted, "but it's also better than living a lie." The Council fleet began its withdrawal, but not before the Chancellor transmitted one final message. "This matter is not concluded, Human Marcus. The Council will find another solution to the contamination you represent." "Let them try," Admiral Chen's voice cut across the channels. Earth is issuing a formal announcement to every species in known space. Any attempt to harm humans for the crime of natural divine perception will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. We're also establishing a permanent embassy in Seraphim space. An embassy? The Chancellor's voice cracked slightly. Someone needs to teach your people how to handle normal diplomatic relations instead of this worship nonsense, Admiral Chen explained. My brother volunteered for the position. Something about wanting to learn more about his new wife's culture. Marcus felt a warm surge of gratitude toward his sister. Trust Sarah to turn an interstellar incident into a diplomatic coup. As the Council ships disappeared into hyperspace, the Earth fleet moved into protective positions around the asteroid. But the real change was happening on a deeper level. Through the divine frequencies, Marcus could sense the conversations erupting across 1,000 worlds. "The Seraphim are people," he whispered, amazed at how simple the truth sounded after all the complexity that had surrounded it. "People who can manipulate matter and energy on a quantum level," Zephyra added with a slight smile. "People who can perceive time as a flowing river instead of a straight line. People who can commune with the fundamental forces of creation itself. But yes, people. That's even more impressive than being gods," Marcus said. "Gods are supposed to be perfect. People who achieve that level of ability while still being flawed and real, that's actually miraculous." Over the following days, as Earth's diplomatic corps worked to establish formal relations with the Seraphim, Marcus learned just how profound the changes would be. The Council's carefully maintained power structure was crumbling as member species realized they had been worshipping people who had deliberately hidden their true nature. "Some of my people are terrified," Zephyra admitted, as they walked through the corridors of the first human Seraphim research station, hastily constructed in the asteroid chamber where they had first met. They've never had to deal with equals before. The worship was easier. "Easier doesn't mean better," Marcus replied. "Look at what we've accomplished just in the past week." He gestured to the laboratory around them, where human engineers worked alongside Seraphim scientists to understand the intersection of technology and divine energy. The breakthroughs were coming at an incredible pace, faster than light communication, matter transformation, energy manipulation techniques that could revolutionize human space travel. "The Council is calling it contamination," Zephyra said. "They claim that human influence is reducing us to mere mortals." "And what do you call it?" Zephyra considered the question seriously. "Liberation. For the first time in millennia, we can be ourselves instead of living up to impossible expectations of perfection." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the station's communication array. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from Earth. "Marcus, Zephyra, you need to see this. We've been monitoring communication across Council space, and something big is happening." The screen filled with images from a dozen different worlds, massive crowds gathering in city centers, species that had never spoken to each other standing together, signs and banners written in hundreds of different languages, but all carrying the same message. "We want the truth." "It's spreading faster than anyone anticipated," Admiral Chen continued. "Species are demanding to know what else the Council has been hiding. Some are asking to establish direct relations with humanity. Others want to meet the Seraphim without the religious protocols." Marcus felt a chill of responsibility. "Sarah, what have we started?" "A revolution," his sister replied simply. "The question is whether it's going to be peaceful or violent." That question was answered over the following months, as the galaxy reorganized itself around new realities. The Council tried to maintain control through force, but their military was designed to police civilized species, not fight wars against enemies who treated every ship as a potential weapon. Humanity's approach to warfare, pragmatic, ruthless, and utterly lacking in concern for proper protocol, proved devastatingly effective against opponents who had grown comfortable with rules and limitations. When Council forces tried to blockade human colonies, human ships simply rammed through their formations. When they attempted to seize human merchant vessels, the merchants fought back with mining equipment, and cargo containers turned into improvised weapons. But the real victory came not from military action, but from something far more powerful. Truth, spreading faster than lies, could contain it. The Seraphim Council has voted, Zephyra announced 6 months after their first meeting. She was addressing a gathering of representatives from 50 different species on the new neutral station orbiting Earth. We are formally dissolving our participation in the Galactic Council's worship protocols. From now on, we will interact with other species as equals. The implications were staggering. Without the Seraphim's divine authority to legitimize their rule, the Council's power over member species evaporated almost overnight. Independent governments formed, trade routes reorganized. Species that had been kept apart by Council regulations began making direct contact. "It's chaos," admitted Koreth, the former Council Chancellor who had accepted a position as one of the new galaxy's diplomatic coordinators. "But it's honest chaos." Marcus watched from the observation deck as ships from dozens of worlds docked at the station. Each one carried representatives eager to establish relations with both humanity and the Seraphim. The galaxy was becoming a much more complicated place, but also a more interesting one. "Any regrets?" Zephyra asked, moving to stand beside him. Even after months together, her presence still made reality feel more vivid, more alive. "About accidentally starting a galactic revolution by seeing my wife naked?" Marcus grinned. "None at all." "Your species has a gift for finding trouble," Zephyra observed. "Yeah, but we're also really good at turning trouble into opportunity." Marcus gestured to the bustling station around them. "Look at this place. 6 months ago, most of these species had never talked to each other. Now they're working together on projects that would have been impossible under Council rule." Through the viewing port, they could see the construction of humanity's first divine frequency drive ship, a joint project between human engineers and Seraphim energy specialists. Other vessels carried diplomatic missions to establish contact with species that had been isolated for millennia under Council restrictions. "The Council archives have been open to all species," Zephyra continued. "Turns out they've been hiding a lot more than just our true nature. There are entire civilizations that were forbidden from space travel, technologies that were suppressed to maintain power balances, history that was rewritten to support their authority." "And now all of that is coming to light," Marcus said. "It's going to take decades to sort through everything." "Centuries more likely, but that's what makes it exciting." Zephyra's eyes sparkled with starlight. "For the first time in my life, I don't know what tomorrow will bring. It's terrifying and wonderful." A chime from the communication system interrupted their conversation. The message was from Admiral Chen, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the new Galactic Federation. "Marcus, you might want to turn on the news feeds. The latest survey results are in." The main display activated, showing communication intercepts from across the galaxy. The data was overwhelming but clear. In every Council species they had surveyed, approval ratings for the old worship-based system had dropped below 20%. New governments were forming based on democratic principles rather than divine authority. "The humans have taught us something valuable," came a transmission from the Altarian Federation, a collection of worlds that had declared independence from Council rule. "Equality is not something that is granted by gods. It is something that people create for themselves." "We're getting applications to join the Federation from 12 new species this week," Admiral Chen's recorded message continued, "and the Seraphim Council has officially requested membership as equal partners rather than divine overseers." Marcus felt a surge of pride mixed with responsibility. Humanity had been thrust into a leadership role in galactic affairs not because they were the strongest or most advanced, but because they had been willing to treat everyone, even angels, as people worthy of respect rather than worship. "The galaxy is growing up," Zephyra said softly. "It's learning to function without gods." "Maybe that's what gods were always supposed to teach people," Marcus replied. "How to be better than they thought possible, even without divine help." As they stood together watching ships arrive from across the galaxy, Marcus reflected on the chain of events that had brought them here. A curious human, an accidental glimpse of divine truth, a marriage born of cosmic law, and a war fought to defend the right to love without permission from governments or gods. "So what happens next?" he asked. Zephyra smiled, her wings catching the light from a dozen different stars visible through the viewport. "We build something new. Together. All of us." The galaxy stretched out before them, vast and full of possibilities that no council had ever dreamed of permitting. It was going to be a remarkable adventure. After all, they were human, and seraphim and everything in between, and together they were going to show the universe what people could accomplish when they stopped asking permission to be extraordinary.